Hello there and welcome to my ranking of all 4 movies in the I Know What You Did Last Summer film franchise. This is a slasher franchise that started in 1997. The first film was released in 97 and really kind of came off the back of the slasher genre that was repopularized by Scream, kind of brought it back from the brink, so to speak. This was the first one after that came out the gate. It's a franchise that I've got some warmth towards just because of nostalgia, although it's definitely got lows, more lows than highs, but we'll get into that in just a moment. This is my ranking. Obviously you may feel differently. Just remember, this is my thoughts, not your thoughts, so we don't need to get bent out of shape by it. I'm ranking these in order of worst to best, and yeah, that's about it really. So we may as well just get on with it, aren't we? You know the spiel. It's a ranking video. Let's get on with it. At number 4 for me, it's probably a very obvious choice for anybody who's seen all of these films, or even just this one, quite frankly. It's I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. This was a straight to DVD release. The franchise kind of went into limbo for quite some time. Studios were trying to get another one off the ground, and eventually when they did, it was this turd. An absolute grotesque piece of non-cinema. It feels made for TV, which essentially kind of what it is. It's got a non-existent budget, quite frankly. There's, if it did have a budget, it's certainly not on screen. It's laughably bad. It's laughably bad. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is not a great film, but it still had a budget. It's still a production value. It still looked nice. This doesn't look nice. It's all grey, muted colours, but not in any kind of creative choice kind of way. Just, no budget. Looks like it was shot in Vancouver. Probably was shot in Vancouver. It looks like a pilot episode, extended pilot episode for a TV show that never came off the ground. Wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of what it turned out actually being. But yeah, it's terrible. It takes the events of the first film, brings in a whole load of new characters that aren't related to the first film, but finds a way to bring back our killer as a ghost of some description. I think what they were trying to aim for here is like your Friday the 13th kind of, you start with a human killer and then that human killer becomes subhuman in some way, or an apparition, a ghost, and then you go down a more supernatural route should the franchise continue, which obviously it didn't in this vein. They had to kind of, they came back for the new one and they forgot this one ever happened, which is quite frankly the only logical way to go. It's terrible performances across the board throughout this film. It's terribly directed. I say it's terribly directed, but again, super low budget. I don't know what director Sylvain White was up against technically, and he was brought in with only 2 weeks to get the ball rolling. This film had a previous director, another director attached for most of the kind of lead up to the production, and then he dropped out or was sacked or whatever, and Sylvain White came up, picked up the pieces, and within a 2-week span got the ball rolling and made the film. So props to him for that. And as bad as it is, I recognise that you can't always pin things on the director or the production team. A lot of it does come down to budget. A lot of it does come down to time constraints and things that we never see. But yeah, either way, whatever the excuses are, it's a bad film. But I will say that Sylvain White did go on to do The Losers, comic book adaptation of The Losers, which I kind of liked. It's actually a really fun action flick, comic book flick. So he's not without talent. Now, some will point out that he also went on to do Slender Man, which obviously isn't a ringing indictment of his great talent. So the guy, I don't know, the guy's on the fence for me, but certainly with this, it's an appallingly bad film. All the wrong choices were made. It's essentially the same story as the first film, but like rejigged for a lower budget, and none of it works. It just all falls flat, and you're checking your watch the whole time through it. It's like 20 minutes in, you're like, really? Just 20 minutes? It feels like it's been an hour. Number 3 for me is I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. As I said, reviewed this recently, so if you want to know my in-depth thoughts, feel free to check out that review. For me, this is just like slasher by numbers. Whoever it was who wrote this, it wasn't Kevin Williamson. He didn't return. Neither did the director of the original film. So this is the first direct sequel to the original, and it's just, yeah, let's get our main cast, the survivors from the first film. Let's populate them with a bunch of new friends, send them to the Bahamas in an isolated location, and then just start bumping people off. You know, it's the rules from Scream 2 and Scream, where it's just, yeah, you know, what do you do in a sequel to a slasher film? It's more gore, it's more kills, it's just, yeah, high body count. That's it, essentially. They just ran with that mandate and didn't really bother to come up with anything story related or majorly character related. It's just, it's quite a depressing affair to watch, to be perfectly honest. Director Danny Cannon does manage to give it some visual flair, so it's not totally without merit. And as bad as it is, when I watch it, you know, I still kind of have some enjoyment from it because of the nostalgia factor. Because of, yeah, at the time when I first got into horror movies back in the 90s, that first I Know What You Did Last Summer was quite instrumental in that, along with Scream. Primarily Scream, but I Know What You Did Last Summer as well. So I was in that stage of my horror fandom where this was kind of all I wanted, really. High body count, lots of gore, that kind of thing. I've since grown out of that mentality, so revisiting it all these years later, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm so done. It's not doing much for me anymore. All the characters make the most stupid decisions in it. The plot devices they use, such as the new love interest and making Ray out to be a complete douchebag at the start of the film just so that they can introduce that love interest. It's like such a lazy way of writing it. It's just all that stuff. It takes characters that admittedly weren't that great anyway to begin with, but they at least had something. By the end of the first film, I was rooting for them. Here, it's kind of like, yeah, it's one step forward, two steps back. At this point, we're coming to the film, and I'm like, I don't like these people anymore, the way they're behaving. Ray's a bit of a douche. Julie's like kind of, yeah, becoming a bit of a victim. And it's like, after everything she went through, I feel like she'd be a bit stronger than this. But yeah, it's not a good film. But I understand why horror fans, particularly slasher fans, have fun with it. But beyond that, beyond the kill count and stuff, it doesn't really have much to offer. Number 2 is the most recent film in the franchise, I Know What You Did Last Summer, 2025 version. I really do wish they'd quit with these legacy sequel titles that just have the same title as the original. It's really annoying. But yeah, I went to see this just today, and it's not great. It's definitely better than I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I think it's trying for something there. It's trying to make a commentary on nostalgia. Sometimes that commentary is quite heavy laden. It's quite, on the nose. Like it's very much in the dialogue where they're telling you what it's about essentially, but I do get it. I do think several choices, big choices, are made in the film that do not work for me. The final killer reveal at the end, I was, no, sorry, not buying it. Just that you didn't do enough in the story, I think, to show me that, to earn that. There's other elements in there that I just feel like are very modern sensibilities that are just tacked in there for the sake of being in there, for being a modern film. I find that the new set of characters are essentially just the old set of characters, but slightly nicer. I do think that they are slightly nicer people in to some degree. In the original film, they didn't even call the police. They just tried to hide the body and then cover it up completely. But here, not so much. So yeah, they're a bit nicer, a bit of a nicer bunch, but still, it is that film where beyond very surface level character traits, oh, you're the nice one, oh, you're the more jockey type, it doesn't really go much beyond that in revealing who these characters are as people. We get a little bit of a guilt kind of thing there, in which one of the characters, kind of the main character, has this self-destructive streak. She has patterns of behaviour which it's kind of her beating herself up because she's dealing with this guilt, and that's fine. I appreciate that, but again, it does feel like very surface level stuff. I feel like there's a lot of cameos in the film that I didn't expect, which one in particular was a really nice surprise. I kind of liked the way it was handled. Another one, I was kind of like, really? How are you there? You should be dead. They also have like this church element in it, you know, where they show some people from this church. I don't know what this church is, what kind of, you know, what denomination or who they are, but it's a very Hollywood take on a weird culty kind of church folk. You know, they refer to people in their congregation as their flock, and it's like, you know, they stand there holding their hands together like interlocked fingers, and you just think, yeah, this is like the stereotypical douchebaggy preachery types that I think a lot of people who've probably never stepped foot in a church for anything other than a Sunday, you know, a wedding service or whatever, this is probably how they view most church folk. But yeah, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because they were setting these characters up to be one thing, and like they didn't really turn out to be that way, but either way they still end up looking like a bunch of douchebags. So it's the commentary there is essentially that these church folk are nutty, whichever way you cut it. So again, it's using characters in the wrong way. It's using characters as either red herrings or not as red herrings, but still misusing them, and it all left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth as a fan of that original film. And as you know, and as someone who has faith, it's pretty nicely shot. You know, the kills are pretty good if you like that kind of thing. Some of them are pretty entertaining. It's one too many callbacks. Again, the film is essentially about nostalgia, but there's one too many callbacks to the original film. Like at one point, they go into this building where they find the float that Sarah Michelle Gellar's character was riding on back in, you know, when she did the pageant, and she was like coming back as the queen, the reigning queen, and she was sitting on this pageant, and they have that. Just, I'm like, dude, that's like 30 years old. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be still hanging around by now. But it was just like, it's just there for the sake of, you know, a wink, wink, nod, nod to the audience that, hey, it's like the original, guys. I've heard some people on YouTube reviewing this film and saying how this is how you do a legacy sequel, and some people even taking the opportunity to crap on Scream 5 and you know, that as if to say that that's not how you do a legacy sequel. This is how you do it. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, Scream 5 did it better. Personally, I know some people prefer Scream 6. I don't. I really enjoyed Scream 5. It's actually one of my favourites. It did it better. Sorry, it just did. It takes some big swings, so I'll, you know, give it credit for that, but it's just that they're the wrong swings. They're the wrong big swings to make, because they lose your, well, for me, obviously not for some. You've got some people declaring it as the best legacy sequel ever. This is how you do a legacy sequel. Yeah, I'm not one of those people. I feel like it lost me as you know, as a fan. As a fan of the original, I've not been a fan of any of the sequels, quite frankly. As a fan of the original, yeah, I think you lose your audience member, which is me. But of course, at number one for me, it's the original 1997 film. Not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. You know, this isn't like everybody must see I Know What You Did Last Summer. But as, you know, if you're into slasher movies, if you're into that kind of movie that Scream was commenting on, this was the one. You know, this was Kevin Williamson writing a movie that his own Scream was commenting on, and you know, because he knows that world, he knows that kind of movie, he does a pretty good job here. Of all the movies that came after Scream back in that period, this is still my favourite, you know, and I do go back to it many times. It ticks a lot of boxes for your slasher kind of horrors. But it does so pretty well. It's very watchable. It's very rewatchable. Like I say, I do keep going back to it. I like the cast. I think some of the performances aren't particularly good in it, like Freddie Prinze Jr., for example. But I do kind of like them together. I like the dynamic between them. Again, they're not the best written characters. They don't have loads of backstory. They're quite one note. But once they make this choice that, you know, compromises their moral integrity, then the rest of the film kicks into gear in a way that I really like. That is a commentary on, you know, like the choices we make. Yeah, it's easily the best for me. And as far as the franchise goes as a whole, I think it probably should have been a one and done, because so far the sequels haven't lit up my world. I was entertained by the new one, don't get me wrong. You know, if you like that stuff, you like the slasher movie kind of stuff, do go out and check it out. It's got some entertaining moments. There is fun to be had, but I do feel like they're kind of flogging a bit of a dead horse at this point. I will stick with the original. I will watch it again, but as for any of the sequels, I don't really feel like I ever need to at this point. So yeah, there you go. That's my ranking of the I Know What You Did Last Summer movies. But what about you? Have you seen the new one? What did you think about it? And how would you rank all 4 films? Please let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.